Afternoon and welcome once again, guys, to Gaming Under the Influence. I'm Mike, here with Alex back at GreenDragonCVR in fucking Woodbridge, Ontario, to talk to you again about video games, using only the best tools. You know, a little bit of profanity, a fucking few beers, bits of smoke, some philosophy and love. Don't really have anything else to give.
That covers it, man. That's all the good stuff, I think. That's all I can offer. Fuck.
Yeah, man. Hope you guys are fucking doing as well as we are. It's a great afternoon. It's fucking sunny here. It's a bit colder than I'd like, though.
I'd say, yeah, probably like -3 or something. It's not too bad, but for our standards, it's also not the worst. So I'll take it.
It's a bit better than some of the past few days. There's those days when it's so fucking cold you can't even go outside, like -15 Celsius.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
This morning was kind of like that. It was like -9. I went out. I was like,
I made the mistake of running in the weather like that, and my lips are just fucking, they cracked, like it was just bleeding. It was terrible.
It's just awful.
All your exposed skin can't deal with more than like 10 minutes.
Yeah. That's fucking
on days
Canada
like that, you know what? It's great to stay at home and play some fucking video games, I guess. I mean, there are many other reasons, but it just helps when you're encouraged by the weather, doesn't it?
I think that's like part of probably one of my favorite things about being like Canadian here in Southern Ontario, where it's like a fucking, you know,
it's a bit of a spread, right? We get some.
It gets cold, and it gets, you know, to the point where, you know, stay inside. Yeah, turn on the fireplace and rev up your fucking game console on your PC.
That's right, exactly.
My PC is like a furnace, dude. I turn that thing on for a couple hours, the room is like toasty.
Yeah,
I'm not even kidding.
With the water cooling, eh?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it still has like 8 fans that are expelling hot air from cooling the radiators, right?
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. That's a fascinating thing.
Not even kidding, dude. Like, it fills up. I have it in like a pretty small room, right? And it just it gets hot. I open the window sometimes because it really fucking heats up the room. No fucking word of a lie. If it's on for like 2 hours,
it's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely feel that way sometimes in my room when the heavy electronics are on. Mostly the PC, though. You're right. Nowadays,
PS5
most shit doesn't make much heat.
Expels a lot of hot air, though.
Yeah, it does.
Just does it like efficiently, right? But the air that comes out apparently is pretty fucking hot. Good times. All the necessary components for us to fucking.
You can tell we're a couple of deep. Our minds are just fucking trailing off into random.
Before we even get started, we're already.
I think at the end of the day, like fucking, we talked about this the other day on Tuesday in our GOI Unleashed live episode, but
live and unfoxed.
I think it'd be worth fucking reiterating. You know, there was this whole fucking thing that I was thinking about the past week or two, like leading up to Bravely Default and now with Outriders, with Pokemon Arceus and the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remix, you know? Diamond and Pearl's the right ones, yes. And, you know, even with common trope, it's hardly a fucking original thought, where you deal with a high fucking degree of, like, replication, reiteration, nostalgia fucking porn.
Definitely. It almost
society,
feels
right?
like a loop where, like,
yeah,
you know, you're constantly replaying, whether it's genres or video game, you know, series like Zelda's and this and that. Like, it definitely, you feel that way, right? Like,
yeah, you definitely do.
It's almost like a repetitive loop. Like,
you know, there's a number of fucking people who talk about this concept fucking in different places. But I think, like, you could look at it cynically and say, you know, there's this fucking thing born like a ghost that never should have been separated from its body, and now we're just planting it in different fucking bodies over and over again, making zombies, and that's definitely not a preferable thing. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but I think there's also a better way to look at it, right? Like, in the same way that we can fucking admit there are diverse fucking members of a genus, like there are different kinds of bird, or even just different members of the same species, like Mike and Alex or what have you, right? Like,
they share like certain things that are necessary components, but at the same time,
repetition could be like
different, right?
Repetition could be of something different, right? Like, there are birds, you're repeating something, what's being repeated is intrinsically, it comprehends a multitude, you know? It's not like you're repeating an A and just writing it on paper over and over again, right? It's repetition of an internal diversity, whereas I think the other kind of repetition is probably closer to genetic cloning, you know what I mean? Or even more fucking poignantly, like grafting a new limb onto the same body, you know?
Right.
It's not really like a fucking adding a new individual to a fucking species, or fucking, you know, making a new fold of fucking difference that kind of fucking overlaps but still kind of, you know, exceeds, super abounds beyond the fucking lines of the original, right? Like, there's no longer internal diversity, there's internal sameness that just kind of spreads outward expansively, like a body getting fat, you know? Right. And I think, like, most of the fucking media that we encounter that it is in some way like, you know, a remake or a rehash or whatever, all the kinds of fucking shit that you want to talk about nowadays, too numerous to count the ways in which people build nostalgia porn now, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think all of it falls into one of those two categories, you know? Like, you're either fucking doing something good with it, you're taking it like, you know, a common metaphor I use, like fucking a painter making a painting, like you're using something old as like a new color in your new painting. New picture, it's just matter, right? Like, you know, or you're fucking instantiating a fucking more universal like fucking thing in a particular case. Like, these are fucking ways in which repetition can be fucking either from the side of form or matter, like a great thing, you know, and has led to some of the best works of art we've ever fucking seen in history, right? Like something like Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy is this fucking thing full of pagan characters and philosophy and shit like that, like resituated in relation to something else explicitly. You know what I mean? Like that that very action could be fucking, you know, in and of itself, like it could lead to something awesome and cool, right? Like, there's
the
fucking a great
imitation is the fucking highest form of flattery or whatever the saying is, right?
Even in the sense that like you straight up like, or this great novel called The Master and the Margarita, I think it's a Soviet era novel, right?
What?
It's a Soviet era novel where like the devil visits St. Petersburg with all of these like historical figures and like fucking archetypes in tow, right? And like I'm just trying to say it's very much a pastiche. Like he's drawing from this and that and that. Like all of it is like he didn't invent any of those parts, right?
No.
But what you're doing with it is making a new like
original idea,
a concept,
vision,
a new form, a pattern. Here, you might even say what he did is make a new species instead of merely a member in an existing one. It doesn't matter where you want to draw the lines of that metaphor. It's not even important right now, really.
Death Stranding or something.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, but that's a different question. Like, I guess what's at stake is what you're doing when you're repeating is not merely like compounding a material body or fucking duplicating it, right? Like, what you're doing is, if there is an overlap with something else, which of course there has to be, because that's the way reality is, right? There's nothing that doesn't overlap with something else, frankly, but it's a different question. You know, if there is fucking overlap, the way it has to be done is in so far as you respect the individual fucking distinction between the things while acknowledging their fucking exoconsistency, their overlap in some other sense, special or categorical or fucking broader than that even, really. It doesn't really matter. Just to say the overlap is not bodily, individual, not like fattening. It's like a overlap within a pattern that exceeds both instances, right? Or fucking is both instances,
or with its
however you want
own
to.
Fucking entity with its own like.
Yeah, it's like a broader pattern. You can't make a game out of the fucking JRPG archetype, for example, in and of itself. It's a pattern, right? It's like an abstract thing, you know. You gotta fucking. It's like drawing a triangle on paper. You have to fucking put it down on some shit, right? And like that's how the JRPG entries are all differentiated, right? Their fucking broader pattern is something that is almost like fucking again an abstract mathematical object. It's a good comparison, right? It's fucking, you know, it's very much like that fucking Joseph Campbell's like quest narrative there, all of these like traditional, you know, stories about fucking chosen ones saving the world with their like shamanical connection to the real, right?
Everything's like that.
Yeah, but JRPGs especially like deal in that, right? Like they were born as like, you know, Japanese like internalization of like fucking Western fantasy from the get-go. Like the whole thing was always approaching archetypal tropes from the outside, right? Or what they perceive as that. And, you know, I said last fucking on Tuesday's episode that the thing that strikes me most about fucking the JRPG formula is how fucking almost reactionary it seems. Like the way it just fucking, you know, posits like fucking a layer of reality, like a grand narrative, a general ontology, you know? It takes it for granted. It's naively related to the world. Like we know the world, our place in it is secure, this and that. It posits like a hierarchy that is born from that fucking cosmic order. It says that the problem is that some guy tried to fuck with that cosmic order and you're the guy chosen by reality, like some sacred Christ-like figure, sacred king to come in and restore the balance, right? Like,
shut that down,
to beatify the human race again, right? Like, so that's
Hero
just the JRPG archetype, right? And it's always like fleshed out with like this weird, like fucking almost like pastiche appropriation of fantasy tropes from all across everything, you know? To the point where like Beastmaster is now something they inserted in Octopath and we see it recur here, and like that weird like Square Enix style, like
it's been in many, I'm sure.
And it's almost funny because Square has created, like they've added, like there's an addendum to fantasy fucking tropes that Square is almost single-handedly responsible for, eh? Like we want to talk about fire magic and everybody's going to know what you mean. Yeah, like when you say Fire-raga, that's the strong one.
Fire-raga, right? That's the big,
you know, you're fucking gonna
Thunder-raga,
that's the heavy one. Those are the big guns, buddy. And like they invented a whole little side canon into fucking fantasy tropes. You know what I mean? And I think like when I think about JRPGs, there's that higher layer of that abstract fucking pattern. There's this like middle layer that we almost always encounter of Square Enix type tropes. And then at the bottom, there's the bodily elements that even Bravely manages to distinguish itself from its predecessors from in that capacity, right? Like there's little fucking things that show evidently that it's not merely like a fucking I would say, if anything, like something like Dragon Quest XI, which I love too, is more
Yeah.
of a fucking direct relative of previous JRPGs, whereas this feels
more
like
of a classic feeling one. Yeah,
this feels like it's really willing to fuck with things, like give you all of these mechanical adjustments, like speed up battle and fucking whatnot. You know, just to summarize all of that stuff, we maybe have gotten a bit tangential. That there are two kinds of repetition in my mind, two kinds of nostalgia porn. I don't think that necessarily implies something bad, you know? And a genre of music like Vaporwave is totally attuned to this, and I think video games are too in many ways, right? Like, any kind of thing fucking abstracted from its fucking, you know, origins in space and time can be reified into like this fucking universal form you plant over and over and over again in things. But I think at the end of the day, that's not truly an instance of there being a universal you're instantiating or a species you're producing new members of. It's instead an instance of like fucking ghosting or cloning the same fucking thing, of zombification or haunting almost, you know?
Yeah.
Some famous people use that
like
analogy,
what
actually.
games could we fucking compare
Gears of War, to my mind, of course, is the fucking straight up comes to your tongue immediately. Like that thing's Halo is like
Halo. I would say
dude,
more.
Those
yeah,
games
a
are
lot
parodies of
Microsoft.
themselves. Like that's it's a fucking joke, right? Like you can see Final Fantasy fucking 16, Final Fantasy 1. It's not even like, you know. But then you look at Gears of War 1
all
and Gears
them
of War
in
6,
between,
it's not even made by the same guys anymore.
Yeah.
And those ones still are, and they're so radically, catastrophically, like apocalyptically different, you know?
It's because like the founding people in the studio sort of evolved with the industries, whereas Microsoft's game IPs, you know, were kind of passed over and handed off. I think that's definitely the case,
but I think also, though, like,
but
it's something we talked about before. I think it's like a cultural disposition towards difference with a capital D, towards the outside that characterizes these philosophies differently. Like, you know, there's like, we called it in the past like a fucking respect for the craft of game making in Japan, but I think it's also a respect for the objects that they instantiate in their games. Like, it's not just me sitting here being like, oh, they have these religious themes. Like, those guys are aware of what they're doing. They fucking treat it with the kind of respect that fucking it deserves if you're dealing with those kinds of fucking concepts, right? And in the West, like, there's no fucking, just this, dude, like, I don't need to sound like fucking denigrating at all. Like, literally, like, most people don't think about these kinds of things. When you go into play a Gears of War, it's the attitude that you go in to watch a Marvel movie with, right? Like, it's just supposed to fucking roll over your eyeballs for a while.
Yeah.
It's not about fucking, you know, any of the kinds of things we normally attribute, much less if you want to talk about the fucking way this relates to some sort of fucking archetypal pattern of human expression, how it fucking relates to other instances of its own fucking genre, how it fucking, you know, if it's a concept of anything at all other than literally let's make a movie, right? Like, you know, I don't think those kinds of, like, none of that fucking matters, bro. Like, people are into brands nowadays. It's truly depressing. Like, people are into brands, and I think we are brought up to be this way from childhood, you know? Like, I remember when I'm young, like, you know, I like fucking representations of brands. Like, I like Mickey Mouse, so I'm gonna get a Mickey Mouse hat, a Mickey Mouse shirt. Like, you know what I mean? You know, there's nothing fucking real about the reasons you like things. You just are into this formal cause that fucking infiltrates your mind and you become addicted to as some sort of fucking shitty version of a drug, right? Like, why?
I mean, it was the same way nowadays, but
that's what people treat brands like now.
For different reasons, though, right?
I'd argue that's what Halo is, you know? That's what Gears of War is, right? Like, it's not at all like, you know, fucking pigeons and fucking ostriches and fucking harpy eagles, right? They're not different fucking species in a genus or different members of the same species. Like, they're just genetic replicas, bro. They're like, hey, we added an open world-ish segment because last year that's what people paid for en masse. And it's not really open world, but it's nice to be able to say it was, you know? And people like Skillet are like, it's hard to me Microsoft when they make games this good, yes. You know, like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro?
Yeah.
When they clone like fucking flesh heaps of shit into more flesh
Gears
heaps?
5,
like,
I didn't even play 4, and 5 was easily the worst one I've played. As a huge fan of 1 to 3, so I don't know.
I tried to play that with my wife, and after 15 seconds, I just hated it so intensely.
Yeah.
The first opening minutes, all of the characters and everything coming out of their mouth, it was like, this is literally what probably Aaron Greenberg thinks people talk like, you know?
Yeah.
People beat him up in school.
There was one chapter of Gears 5 that I actually didn't mind, and I somewhat enjoyed. I think it was chapter 2, and I can't even remember, like, exactly why. But for whatever reason, it sort of reminded me of 1 to 3 a little bit. It had some of the same kind of dark vibes. But anyway, after that, or aside from that, it was totally like just meh.
Something that early Gears games and Japanese game development have in common is their like honest approach to their subject matter, right? They're not like, there's not this like cynicism where you're fucking really you're making a Gears game, but really you're cloaking like fucking your real life bullshit in some fucking fantasy skin, right? Like, is that what's going down? Like, you know, in Corey and God of War,
Corey
like,
making the game about his
Neil
son,
making fucking
or
this
fucking Neil making
just
Last of Us
impotent
2,
humanitarian
and
diatribe.
even Rod
Humanist.
and Gears and his whole thing about smoking
that's
and
just
yeah.
That even is perhaps more feeble because of how petty it is, you know? Oh my god.
I hate to sound like a fucking, you know, we're fucking weebs, man, like greasy fucking weebs, but like whenever you see some shit about the Nintendo guys like Miyamoto or whoever, he was like talking about his inspiration for fucking Star Fox was he was walking through like this I can't remember, it was one of those like shrine places in Japan, right? And there's all these red gates, right? And he was thinking about how they're making that 3D Star Fox game, and then you'd be flying through those gates, and like it's stupid, but like it came from like such a beautiful space, right? Like,
Yeah, I guess so, right? At least it wasn't inserted to make a point, you know?
Yeah.
I think
it's just
truly
like a useless fucking inspiration from beauty, right? Like
the problem with that is the problem with these kinds of point making exercises, aside from the fact that they're fucking piteous and hideous and ugly and just useless garbage, and I hate them, aside from all that, is that really what they do is they fucking turn art into a closed circle, man. Like the whole point of it is to create this fucking place where like your conventional consciousness normally looped into the fucking strains of day-to-day life where it makes contact with something outside of itself, you know? Mm-hmm. It melts into a new universe. It melts into even a fucking rug with a beautiful fucking pattern in it geometrically, right? Like there's a universe in everything, right? Like the point of art is to take you outside of yourself. You're supposed to live in the form of something else, poetically, like with the mind in it, not like when you're doing math abstractly, like you're fucking in the moment, like concretely, like I'm touching this thing right now, experiencing the form of something else. That's the point of it. And when you, some fucking guy with a point to make, goes in making points, what you do is you fucking, it's like you took a straw that you were drinking your drink with and you stuck it up your own asshole. And all you're doing is sucking up your own shit again, right? You're just, all you're doing is dealing in your own garbage. It no longer helps you contact the outside. You're just touching yourself. Who wants that, Corey? Fuck off, bro. You know what I mean?
Corey.
I have a kid. Why would I want to play a game about your fucking kid? What the fuck do you get out of that? You know? Anyways, I'm just trying to say, like, you go into art fucking trying to make some humanist point. All you do is destroy its function as art and make it about you. It's like an Instagram post, and it's useless. It's worse than useless. It's dangerous and narcissistic and poison, right? Like, yeah. So that's why fucking, again, like in games development from, you know, even naive fucking Western games development, which we'll fucking use for that pre-fucking self-conscious era, you know, before maybe all of this fucking, before like, you know, and honestly, like, I'm definitely not talking about anything like Gamergate or any of those political fucking stupidities. Like, I mean the point where people started self-consciously being activists with their video games, you know? And I don't think that necessarily has anything
with
to
the
do with
like
that.
original purpose and intent to say this or be this, and then making kind of the game. Yeah,
and of course, like it never happened naturally. It happened because they thought that that was popular at a given point in time, right? Like, but
yeah, big enough to get to enough eyeballs, right? To you know, spread the fucking word like a cult, right? Like a fucking.
And I think that like one thing that fucking Japanese games and naive Western games like the original Gears of War shared is that they both still accomplish this function of fucking, you know, being vectors of the outside, right? Like you still are fucking not merely immersed in your own fucking personal or humanist shit when you're playing a game like the original Gears of War. As much of a pastiche as that was, it was a fucking mashup of just American cultural tropes and fucking stupid sci-fi ideas.
It was so fucking good.
But dude, like, it was fucking alien, man. The world of Gears of War, the first one was mysterious and alien. You're like, what is going on?
It was sick.
You know? It's so demystified now, but that's another story altogether. I'm just trying to say, like, it definitely fucking was a great game that used, like, all these bullshit cultural tropes. Like, fucking, what's it called? That movie, Iron Jacket. I don't know. American fucking war movie tropes, like all of these fucking little things tied together into this organic fucking stuff. When I was a young man, it really
fucking,
inspired me.
You
like
know.
the way it was like a mashup of sci-fi and fantasy and American military tropes. Like it was cool. It's really cool. They have like fascist government and shit. It was cool. It was political in the way most people normally want, right?
It was a fucking thing, man. It was. I'm not surprised at all that it appealed to me so much. And I'm
it was
so
a
happy
good game.
I played it
was
like
cool.
day one.
It was
when
well
I did.
conceived. Oh yeah, so smart. I remember being 16 and like Googling everywhere for information on like the fucking locust horde and shit. You know? So tight, man.
That was when it had like the lore and the backstory of the D-Day or whatever they had called it. Fucking
E-Day.
E-Day, emergency.
Oh man, I remember the second one where you go into the fucking tunnels and you're like, what the fuck? They have like a palace and shit.
That's what I mean, man. 1, 2, and even 3 were like fucking
And you know what else?
really good
Remember when
games,
Dom's
man.
wife died in number 2?
Yeah.
And it wasn't totally fucking lame and contrived, and you're like, you actually cared a little?
Dude, I
You know?
fucking... when I played through 2 and 3, I was actually the first times, because I played through those games more than once,
Yeah,
and
me
that's
too,
rare
me
for me
too.
now.
Me
I never
too,
do
me
that.
too.
Never
Yeah,
do
me
that.
too.
But I did it
Yeah.
multiple times, even
Those
a
are
couple
great
times
games.
with
We should play
friends.
those again.
We should. We should
Those are
definitely
great games.
do that.
On PC,
But-
they're on Xbox Game Pass. We should play them
Yeah?
fucking co-op and stream
On the-
that shit.
fuck.
They're great games.
I'd be down.
I'm sure
man.
you can do that,
even
bro.
Even if we honestly did on like easy or normal, just
Yeah,
to
whatever.
blast
Yeah, I
through
don't
it.
give a
Like,
fuck about playing hard. The
but
stories are cool though. 1, 2,
that's what I
3.
mean,
Even
like,
Judgment was good.
those
you know?
games actually like made me emotional. Like playing through the story, like I was bought in, right?
Yeah, no, me too.
I
But
was
again,
sad.
it's for their naivete. They
Fuck.
didn't have any pretensions. They're just like, we're gonna disguise
Yeah.
white fucking normal human. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have no point to make to you, you know?
No.
Or again, like something
loved
like
it, man. I
God of War
loved
2018 to me takes normal human shit and pontificates on it to the point where it's no longer normal human shit. It's a fucking like a cue card with a point written on it. You know what I mean? God.
Yeah,
can't
even
stand
like The Last of Us. It's like because to me, like Last of Us 2 just doesn't do justice to the world they created in 1. Like I love 1 so much, and I
don't
know
if
like you
I'm
didn't
really
even,
qualified
but like
to even talk about it that
Oh,
much.
man.
Like I didn't even finish it. That's how much I didn't like it that much. You know, I was like,
1.
yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
You know what I
but
was doing,
fucking-
man? Actually, I tried to play that at the same time as The Evil Within. You know, and they're both
Okay.
they're almost identical games. in
Really?
terms of
Yeah.
gameplay. They're both survival horror games. Fucking, but one is made by Japanese people. Shinji Mikami made the first one, the Resident
Oh,
Evil 4 guy.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And one's made by by
Naughty
Westerners.
Dog, yeah.
And man, playing them, these two mechanically almost identical games next to each other. I finished Evil Within in a couple of days, and then I never picked up The Last of Us again. And that just goes to show, like,
I mean, I know why
it was
The
when
Last
they
of Us-
re-released it on PS4. Remember back
Yeah,
then?
yeah, Last of Us remastered.
Yeah.
I know why 1 wouldn't appeal to you, and I get that, but in like 1 compared to 2,
Yeah. Yeah, no,
It's
but
a
I agree
joke.
though. I still remember some cool moments,
joke.
like where they're fucking driving in a car there through the city and they get fucking railed by those fucking bandits and shit. And there's
yeah,
intense
it
scenarios.
pretends he's hurt,
yeah.
like stop, help,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then he just runs right
Yeah.
through him. Yeah, like
I do actually like the world they built. You're right. When I
The
think
world
back on
is
it, like
sick
with the
and
fungal
yeah.
infection and the all the
That-
ways they
that
root
takes-
that subtle sci-fi like shit, right? Like I do that.
it takes such a backseat in 2 because the narrative is pushed just between the personal relationships of the people, and
Yeah.
even if it was good, which obviously like I don't think it is.
That's why I love Days Gone, buddy.
It's bad. It's
That's why I love Days Gone.
Yeah.
Days Gone fucking walks this tight rope so fucking well. Like it definitely has a humanist narrative, like fucking subtext. Like it's got this, the whole thing is about Deacon trying to find his wife and stuff like that, and like fucking the humanist subtext fucking goes far beyond that. Like it's all about questions of personal identity and stuff. Like in the way there's those Ripper guys who think the way to enlightenment is to imitate the zombies, but in the end you find out that the zombies are still practically human and they remember their old lives and they wear jewelry and they go to their homes and shit.
That's fucked up.
So it's this whole fucking discourse on human nature and identity and stuff like that, but like it doesn't have that fucking contrived like Californian cue card format to it, right? Like it's got humanism in it the same way Shakespeare had humanism in it, It's about people, but like fucking insofar as people are about more than people, right? Like the human microcosm is itself like that fucking site where art touches something else in these cases, A story about a man can be about something more than that, right? Like
Revenge
Cormac
is
McCarthy and
bad.
Blood Meridian and fuck, man. Did you ever, there's a great book called Blood Meridian. It's about fucking exactly that. Like it's about this
Really?
fucking sense in which like it's almost like a Gnostic. It's like a Gnostic. Gnosticism is this idea that the earth was created by an evil fucking secondary god who ripped us all out of our status in like the main god and fucking stuck us in bodies which are really prisons and shit. And that's like a terrible state. And anyways, Blood Meridian is a book about how like fucking it has these themes, right? Like normal human existence is just warfare. It's like about this gang of scalpers, like cowboy scalpers who cut off Indian scalps and shit. And anyways, it's very much about how fucking the same kind of thing as The Last of Us 2, I guess I'm trying to say, right? Like the fucking matter of it is very, very similar about these brutal worlds where fucking cycles of violence beget violence, and it seems like there's this almost inescapable fucking
just fucking.
But like, what's the purpose of this? What are you trying to say, Neil? That like in a humanist sense, like they teach you in school, you should just be like, okay, I guess it's better to be nice to each other. Like, no, man. Cormac McCarthy's point is that that's the nature of creaturely being. All of his novels are about how being in a body, living in the world, is akin to being in this warscape constantly,
shit,
right? Like, I don't fucking think Neil gets anywhere near that shit,
But it just doesn't make sense in the world they built. That like, you know what I mean? When you look at number 1 and just picture the fucking literal fucking the world The Last of Us takes place in, like it just
No, I mean, I could
It
be
doesn't
fucking totally
fucking make
misinterpreting the
sense.
intention, but I seen, to my mind, it is public meaning, like inbuilt in the text. At the ending of The Last of Us 2, its point is not that the world has to be this way. Its point is that if you make bad choices, you're going to be lonely. You know what I mean? That things are going to go bad for you,
Ugh,
right? That you should give
I
up revenge
guess.
and seek, like, you know, fucking nice white picket fence life with your fucking family or something,
God,
right? Like,
I don't know.
You know, oh my God, dude.
I don't even
Maybe
wanna know.
Corey helped him write that fucking scene.
Even
I
just
don't know.
the discourse around it makes me just not want to play it. And
Yeah,
I
because
played,
people made it
like-
about what? Like gender issues or something like that? Oh
just-
my
yeah,
God.
all that-
I fucking
ugh,
definitely am
just
so
fuck
done
off.
fucking caring about that kind of shit in video
Yeah,
games.
yeah.
I literally, like, that's just a canard, a fucking
Ugh.
giant canard. It's so cynical even on the part of people putting it in. They just want your money, boys. I'm telling you. If you're one of the new included groups, like, that's just a mechanism for capitalism to fuck you in the ass. Like,
Yeah,
like the rest of us.
pretty much. We're already in, so
You can't be fucking bought and sold if you're not included, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
literally, you know. But all that aside, like, it's funny that we got on this topic because I think it well relates to what we were talking about before, you know? You can identify a kind of, like, cloning or genetic fucking incestuous relationship between games that aren't even related to each other via franchise or creator, right? Like, they're made, though, within the same zeitgeist, like the same
Yeah.
intellectual atmosphere that they
Yeah,
almost,
yeah.
like, fucking are replicas of each other. It's like the same body fucking stretching into two different genres via The Last of Us 2 and fucking God of War 2018, right? Like, I don't know. I really think that that's a comparable analogy. Like, if the JRPG has a mythos to itself, like it's got a fucking internal structure that has a vision of the world built into it, then surely God of War 2018 and The Last of Us 2 share a vision. At least as fucking similar as all of these JRPGs we're talking about, right? Like,
yeah, I guess you can say that.
this, like, it's a case, man. Like, it's a case to be made, you know? We're too in the shit to have fucking proper view to see it or to construct the right words for it, but, like, games like that, games like Last of Us, even games like fucking, you know, for better or worse, Days Gone, games that I like, right? Like, they're gonna be fucking lumped into this, like, weird, like, Western, like, humanist game design. Like, it's about guys and their lives in a fucking world, and, you know, it's not like, it's very much not like, you know, a Japanese version of the exact same thing, which could be about a guy, but it's not really, right? Like
Problem is, yeah, like
Tidus
the-
in Final Fantasy X, it's about him, but it's not, like, dude, like,
the Western ones are more literal, right?
they're
And I think
literally
that's-
literal. That's it. Yeah, they're about this guy.
Yeah.
and he's not, like, got nothing to him. He's just this guy, you know. And you're supposed to see yourself in him, probably,
Right.
and, like, be like, yeah, this made me feel things. It was
'Cause
great.
yeah.
I'm crying on the internet, dude. I watched a fucking video of Kevin Smith, the guy who made Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, crying on
He's
the
nutty
internet
now, yeah, he's
after
a
he
little
watched
bit
WandaVision. You know what I mean?
What?
Are you kidding?
WandaVision made
That's
him
why
cry?
fucking Jay made fun of him so hard in Jay and Silent Bob, you know? Because he was such a bitch. That's why he wasn't allowed to talk, because he probably would have said some stupid garbage like that, right?
I thought Kevin Smith was cool, but I guess he drank too much of that California
He's all
water,
soft, man. All these fucking American
it
guys
must be,
with
yeah.
otherwise, like, good fucking creative aptitude are just all, like, they buy into the cultural sphere. Like, they you know, they think,
Maybe they have no choice. Like, maybe it's just
yeah, if
like
they want
you
to be
do
successful,
this
I'm
or
sure
like
they don't have a choice, yeah.
or else fucking your family's
ostracized.
gonna starve. Who knows?
You're right.
I don't want to know.
I don't want to know either. I didn't even want to bring this up, but I think that's kind of like this fucking business that I don't even give a shit about either way, about this fucking Harry Potter guy getting fired. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I started reading about it and I was like, I don't care about this. Fuck
to say,
this.
though, like,
ugh.
It's the same kind of fucking ridiculous nonsense. Like, man, I'm even more cynical about it than I would have been before, insofar as, like, it doesn't even seem like this is just the same motoring of the fucking hamster wheel, bro. Like, the same, none of it matters. Like, what do you think anybody accomplished here?
Yeah, it's
Who
like-
cares about any of these parties? Do you
what I mean,
fucking
like,
believe in
if
the right
you-
of... dude, I don't care about fucking... none of that is fucking good, you know? Like, the people defending the rights of people with their opinion to work a fucking wage slave, work as wage slaves for some game development company, are barking up the wrong tree too, right? Like, perhaps this whole situation is designed exactly to get you to fucking do that, right? Like, the point of all of this is nobody fucking didn't know that. Everybody knows it, but the point is the system doesn't know it. When you bring it to the symbolic surface of things, then it's not about people knowing it. It's about it can't be computed by the symbolic structure anymore. The Matrix itself has it in the code. Now you got to fucking deal with it,
So
right?
how
There has to
does-
be some processing.
Is that
you
where
know?
cancel culture comes from now?
I'm
You
just trying to say,
cut
like,
people off?
in relation to your question, how far do you go? Well, it doesn't matter how far you go. The only thing that matters is going far enough in relation to what's out in public, what's encoded, right? Reality doesn't matter here, if it even exists anymore at all as a distinction, right? Like,
Jesus Christ.
so, you know, the important thing to remember, if you're fucking barking up this tree of guy should keep his job or guy should get fired, is that you're fucking doing exactly what everybody wants you to do, which is fucking nothing. You're fucking advocating two polarities of the same fucking shit coin, you know?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the best fucking thing for everybody who plays video games would be to not care at the fuck all.
About any of it. Yeah.
You know, fuck you. Actually, I don't care who works on my games. Unless they're
That's
fucking
what I
good
mean,
skill,
though.
right?
Like
I like my creators. I mean, I don't care what kind of people they are. I care what kind of artists they are, right?
Yeah.
I don't care about that. I don't care what kind of people are depicted in my games either. You know? Seriously, do you? Do you actually give a fuck one way or the other? Put whatever you want, bro.
I don't
Put all the abbeys or what have you.
I don't
like,
care.
You know,
Honestly,
my next
don't.
Batman can be black if you like. I don't give a fuck.
I don't fucking.
Is that a real thing? Who actually? Who cares?
But
But they're trying to change all the children's books. But you're
Fuck, don't
pretending that
change
it
'em.
matters.
Just
That's the
fucking-
reaction like that people desire you from you, man. Like
Make new shit. I played Miles Morales. I don't give a fuck.
the point is, like, I guess in all of this, like, to bring it back to what we were talking about before, concern of this variety is tantamount to fucking Corey wanting to turn mythology to his own purposes and making God of War, or Neil wanting to fucking make something instead of a Gnostic wasteland, like in Cormac McCarthy, something about how we should be nice to each other, right? Like, fucking getting stuck on these fucking, on what at the end of the day, you know, in the best case scenario is merely the matter of a discussion. Like, it's bad. It fucking turns it into the point, and then everybody suffers because nothing good is made anymore, you know? Everything becomes about these pursuits, right? Like, and at the end of the day, like, if the system's point is to fucking keep us from the outside, it's succeeding when we're talking about the Harry Potter guy instead of about the Harry Potter game, right? If anything's gonna fucking counteract like the things that we hate about the world, you know?
I don't care. Tell me more about the game when you're ready.
Yeah,
like, I don't,
that's it, right?
Fuck all this bullshit.
That's the outside. Fuck this guy.
this is
Either way,
drama.
both of those polls are bullshit conditions. I don't care.
Yeah.
No, I don't care. Like, no. I don't care if you are or are not. Like, the very concept even of representation, man, we have to go far enough as to say, like, what do you mean representation? Like, representation as a potential customer / participant in the system. That's not a status you want.
Yeah.
It's not desirable, right? Like, you know, what we should want is a new system at the end of the day, but that's another question entirely.
That's totally, yeah.
Just to say, though, we touch something outside the system when we care about the game, you know? The thing we're in, once we fucking click into it, like, none of these social relationships matter anymore, right? We're in something else. That's what we should be concerned with. And if you really don't like the way things are, that's where you should fucking focus yourself on, right? Like, because fucking caring about all this garbage about free speech and honestly caring about any, you know, any fucking moderate political cause is just bullshit. Just bullshit. No. You know? No system gives you the terms to change it, right? Like, you can't fucking speak against the language in its own terms. Like, it doesn't work, you know?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day then, man, if there's a lesson to take away from all of this today, it's that good things always fucking consist in something essentially different, something that is internally just more than we can ever fucking know or comprehend. You know, making itself born in different cases that never exhaust that case.
Yeah, even if it, like you're saying, follows.
Yeah, there's a pattern, but it's never exhausted in any instance.
Yeah, like
each
Final
instance is like
Fantasy,
a new member of the species. It adds its own fucking thing to it. It's fucking a new circle
flavor,
within the
its
bigger
own-
circle.
yeah.
Whereas something bad, and it always tends to be the case that when it's bad, it tends towards humanism because that's where localism occurs, right? That's the thing to which we reduce things. When it becomes bad, it's genetic cloning, you know, either at the base tropical level or merely at the level of like expectations of culture. Like, what do you think people want? Implanting it in different instances, you know, like Fortnite versus fucking all of its fucking myriadical clones, or fucking Destiny versus, you know, Outriders, perhaps.
Outriders that we didn't even talk about that we meant
maybe
to,
it's
but
better. Maybe
I
we'll
think,
get back to that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I want to refine my opinion more. Maybe I was too pissy last time.
We definitely were pissy on Outriders.
I'm willing to admit that I was
give
wrong.
it a little bit of another shot
Yep.
and see if we can maybe piss on it less.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think I'll like it, but
Yeah.
maybe I'll piss on it less.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Probably not because it's still
Yeah.
a Destiny clone, but we'll see.
Yeah. I think that fucking really, if I want to emphasize anything at the end of the day, man, it's that's the functionality of video games. Like, not only between each other, but like even when you are playing them, like the action of playing them is ideally like a means of fucking, you know, a means of fucking transcendence. Like, it's a mystical experience. You become something else, right? Like fucking, and between video games,
Sucks
of
you out
course,
of this
it's
world.
better if between each video game, there is something different to become. It's not merely like you're fucking being passed through a human centipede. It's instead like you're fucking experiencing different members of
Outriders
different
like
species.
Destiny 3.0, guys.
Yeah. Difference repeated, not the same thing containing fucking difference in a cloned genetic manner, right? Like, I hope that distinction is clear. It's obviously fucking getting kind of abstract and messy, but, you know, I think it is.
One day.
Yeah. And, you know, in our Tuesday episode, I argued that Outriders was more of a fucking case of this genetic repetition, but even after a few minutes with it there, like, I still think that, but I want to fucking make sure more and, like, fucking see what I can do with that fucking concept before we just shat it to death so much, right? Like,
yeah, and at the end of the day, if we're going to shit it to death, at least we'll more properly, you know, be equipped to shit it to death by playing a little bit.
I think it's important to think about when we fucking play games or deal in franchises or any fucking other such thing in our pop culture sphere.
Keep in mind for sure.
Keep that shit in mind. And that's been fucking GUI 69, boys. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.